The first fracture. The words had escaped my mouth before I could catch them, raw, desperate, burning in the air between us. Who am I? My father stood frozen in the doorway, the dim light casting shadows across his face. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes I had never noticed before. Fear. Not the kind of fear that comes from danger outside, but the kind that comes from losing everything you've spent a lifetime protecting. He closed the door behind him slowly, the sound of the latch clicking like the toll of a bell. My hands still clutched the photograph of the young woman holding the baby who looked like me. My throat tightened, my breath ragged. "I told you never to go through my things," he said at last, his voice low and trembling. I wanted to shout, to scream that I didn't care, that I deserved to know the truth. But all I could do was whisper, "Please, just tell me." For a long time, he said nothing. The silence pressed down so heavy it felt like the air itself was suffocating me. Finally, he walked across the room, took the photograph from my hand, and stared at it as though it was a wound that had never healed. "That's your mother," he said softly. I blinked, confusion flooding me. "But, Mama, not the woman who raised you," he interrupted, his voice breaking. "Your real mother." The world tilted beneath me. My knees went weak, and I sank onto the trunk, the documents spilling around me like fallen leaves. She died when you were born," he continued, his gaze fixed on the photograph. "She was too young, too fragile. And she begged us, me and your mama, to raise you as our own, to give you a life she never could." My chest ached as though a vice had closed around it. The woman in the photo, the one with my eyes, my face. I would never know her, never hear her voice, never feel her arms around me. And why? Why didn't you tell me? I managed to choke out. His eyes lifted to mine then, and I saw them glisten. "Because we wanted to protect you. Because we thought love would be enough." Tears blurred my vision, spilling hot and fast down my cheeks. "But you lied to me," I whispered. "You made me live in a house of lies." The words hit him like a blow. His shoulders sagged, his face crumpled, and for the first time in my life I saw my father cry. He knelt before me, his rough hands reaching for mine. "I swear to you, every day of your life we have loved you as our own. Nothing can change that." But love couldn't erase the hole that had been torn open inside me. A hole shaped like the woman in that photograph. And then before I could gather myself, I remembered the other secret. The woman at the train depot. The bundle he carried into the night. Who was she? I asked, my voice shaking. "The woman you met the other night. And what was in that bundle?" His face went pale, his grip on my hands tightening. "That," he said, his voice no longer soft but sharp with warning, "is something you must never ask about again." But the warning only fueled the fire in me. Because now I knew this wasn't just about me. There was more, much more, and I wasn't going to stop until I uncovered every last piece of it. Her father finally reveals part of the truth. Her real mother died giving birth, and they raised her as their own. Emotional confrontation. Father cries. Daughter feels betrayed, but the mystery deepens. Father refuses to explain the woman and bundle. The obsession begins. Sleep became a stranger that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, the woman in the photograph, the woman who gave me life and vanished with it. Her face haunted me, soft yet distant, unreachable as a dream. But more than that, I saw him again, my father at the train depot, speaking to the mysterious woman, carrying away the bundle as if it were something precious or forbidden. The next morning, I moved through the house like a ghost. My father avoided my eyes, burying himself in chores, pretending the conversation never happened. But I couldn't pretend. Not anymore. The truth wasn't a wound I could cover. It was a fire eating me from the inside. At school, the voices of my classmates blurred into noise. The chalk squeaked across the blackboard, meaningless. I scribbled in the margins of my notebook. Not numbers, not words, but the same shapes over and over. A bundle, a woman's silhouette, a question mark. By the time I walked home, the decision was already made. I wasn't going to let it rest. That night, after everyone went to bed, I crept to the window. The village was quiet, the kind of quiet where even a dog's bark echoed like thunder. My heart pounded as I slipped out, bare feet brushing against the cold earth. I knew where I had to go. The train depot. The moon hung low, casting silver light over the rusted tracks. The depot was nearly deserted, its walls peeling, its benches cracked. I crouched in the shadows, shivering, my eyes fixed on the place where I had once seen them. Minutes passed. Then hours. My body ached, my eyelids drooped, but I refused to leave. And just when I thought I had been foolish to come, I saw him, my father. He walked quickly, shoulders hunched, carrying something under his arm. A bundle. My stomach twisted. This time the woman was already there, waiting. She stepped out of the shadows. Tall, thin, her scarf pulled low over her face. I couldn't see her features, but her voice carried in the night, sharp and low. "You're late." My father muttered something I couldn't catch. He handed her the bundle. She opened it slightly, just enough for me to glimpse what was inside. Cloth, neatly folded. But then, for the briefest moment, something else flashed under the moonlight. Metal. I froze. The woman nodded, her voice cutting the air like a blade. "This is the last time. After this, you're finished." And then she disappeared into the darkness. My father stood there alone for a moment, his head bowed before turning back toward home. I pressed a hand against my chest, my heart racing so loud I was sure he could hear it. My father, my gentle, laughing father. What secret was he hiding that came wrapped in cloth and glinted with metal? I stumbled back through the night, my thoughts tangled, my body trembling. One truth had already shattered me, about my mother. But this second truth, whatever it was, had the power to destroy everything. This is episode 3, part 2, 900 words. She begins to obsess over the mystery. She spies again at the depot, sees her father with the woman. This time, the bundle reveals a flash of metal, something dangerous. The woman tells him, "This is the last time. After this, you're finished." The first clues. The next morning, I watched my father with new eyes. Every movement seemed calculated, every silence suspicious. He whistled while chopping wood, but I noticed the way his hands trembled. He smiled at me across the breakfast table, but his gaze lingered on me too long, as if to measure whether I knew something. I pretended not to, but inside, my mind was racing. What was inside that bundle? What did the flash of metal mean? And why had that woman said it was the last time? I needed answers. For the first time in my life, I felt older than my years, like I was standing at the edge of something I wasn't supposed to see, something dangerous. But once you see the cracks in the wall, you can't go back to pretending the wall is whole. That afternoon, when my father left for the fields, I searched the house. My hands shook as I lifted boards under the bed, opened the rusted chest in the corner, dug through drawers filled with yellowing paper. Nothing. Just the ordinary clutter of a poor man's life. But then, behind a stack of old blankets in the storage trunk, I found it. A small, leather-bound book. Its cover was worn, the edges frayed. It smelled of dust and tobacco. My heart pounded as I opened it. The first pages were innocent enough. Lists of expenses, notes about harvests, small details of daily life. But deeper inside, the words shifted. Dates, places, names I didn't recognize. And beside them, strange symbols I couldn't understand. Triangles, circles, marks that looked like they had been written in a hurry. My throat went dry. This wasn't just a diary. It was something else. At the very back, folded neatly, was a scrap of newspaper. I unfolded it carefully. The headline screamed, "Illegal arms shipment intercepted. Federal agents investigate underground network." And below it, a name, not my father's, but one of the names I had just seen written in the book. I nearly dropped it. My father's handwriting, linked to a newspaper story about weapons. Was that what the bundle contained? Weapons? Was my father involved in something far darker than I had ever imagined? The sound of footsteps jolted me. I shoved the book back under the blankets and darted out of the room, my chest heaving. My father entered just moments later, his boots heavy with mud. He looked at me, his eyes narrowing. "Have you been in my things?" he asked softly. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice steady. No, Papa. He studied me for a long moment. Then he smiled, but it wasn't the smile I knew. It was colder, strained. Good, he said. Because some things aren't meant for children's eyes. His words lodged in my chest like a splinter. He knew, and I knew too. The house no longer felt like home. It felt like a cage of secrets, each wall pressing closer. That night as I lay awake, I whispered to myself, if he won't tell me the truth, I'll find it myself. And with that vow, I stepped into a world no child should ever have entered. A world where trust could shatter overnight, and love could become tangled with fear. She finds her father's leather-bound book, discovers strange symbols, names, and a newspaper clipping about illegal arms shipments. Suspicion grows. Maybe the bundle contained weapons. Father confronts her subtly, showing he may already suspect she's onto him, ends with her vow to uncover the truth herself. Asking the wrong questions. The vow I made that night wouldn't let me rest. Every waking moment I thought of the bundle, the strange woman, the book, the clipping. Secrets pressed in from every corner of my father's life, and I could no longer sit still while the truth hid in shadows. So I began to ask questions. Not directly, not at first. At the market, while the women weighed apples and whispered gossip, I lingered nearby. Did you hear anything about trouble near the depot? I'd ask, trying to sound casual. Their eyes flicked toward me, then away. Children shouldn't meddle in grown folks' talk, one of them muttered. I asked again, this time to the blacksmith, who often saw travelers passing through. Do many strangers come at night? He narrowed his eyes, spat into the dust, and said nothing. The silence frightened me more than any answer could have, but I kept pushing. One evening, as I lingered by the well, a man I barely knew leaned against the stones, his eyes sharp and curious. He had a scar across his cheek, the kind that makes a face unforgettable. You ask a lot of questions for a little girl, he said, his voice low. I froze, the bucket handle cutting into my palms. He smiled, but it wasn't kind. Careful what you're looking for. Some truths don't want to be found. And just like that, he walked away, his boots crunching against the gravel. That night, my dreams were filled with shadows. The scarred man's words looped in my mind, twisting into warnings. But fear couldn't extinguish the fire inside me. If anything, it made it burn hotter. So I turned to the only person I thought I could trust, my neighbor, Mrs. Carter. She had always been kind, slipping me cookies when my father wasn't looking, telling me stories by lamplight. She knew everyone's business, or so it seemed. Mrs. Carter, I whispered one afternoon after helping her hang laundry. Do you know anything about a woman at the train depot? Her hand stilled on the clothespin. For a moment, her face drained of color. Why would you ask me that? She demanded. I swallowed hard. I saw her once. With my papa. Mrs. Carter's eyes darted around, making sure no one else was listening. She pulled me closer, her fingers trembling against my arm. "Listen to me, child," she hissed. "There are people in this town who would do anything to keep their business quiet. If you value your life and your father's, you'll stop asking questions. Do you understand?" Her grip was iron, her fear unmistakable. I nodded quickly, but inside, the fire only roared louder because her warning meant one thing. She knew something. And if she knew, others knew too. That night, as I lay in bed, I stared at the ceiling and thought, everyone is hiding something. Everyone. But the scarred man's voice echoed louder than my own thoughts. Careful what you're looking for. For the first time, I wondered if I had already gone too far. She starts asking around the village, encounters silence and suspicion, meets a scarred man who warns her. "Some truths don't want to be found," asks Mrs. Carter, who reacts with fear and urgency, warning her to stop, ends with rising paranoia. Everyone seems to be hiding something. The night of fire. Mrs. Carter's warning rattled in my bones, but it didn't stop me. If anything, it told me I was closer than ever to the truth. People only fear what has power, and whatever my father was entangled in, it clearly had power. That night, the air was thick and restless, like the whole town was holding its breath. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to the book, the bundle, the scarred man's words. So, just before midnight, I slipped out again. The streets were deserted, the lamps casting long, eerie shadows across the dirt road. I wrapped my shawl tighter and moved toward the depot, my heart pounding with each step. I wasn't sure what I expected to find. Maybe nothing. Maybe just the ghosts of my own suspicions. But as I rounded the corner, I froze. The depot wasn't silent tonight. Two figures stood near the tracks, my father and the woman again. But this time there were others too. 3 men I didn't recognize, their faces hard, their movements sharp. The scarred man was among them, his eyes glinting in the moonlight. They were arguing. Voices low, heated. I crouched behind a stack of crates, straining to hear. "You said this was the last shipment," my father hissed. "It is," the scarred man replied. "But you don't get to walk away. Not until we say so." One of the other men lifted a bundle, unwrapping it just enough for me to see. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just metal. It was guns, rifles, heavy and gleaming, tucked inside layers of cloth. My father's hands shook as he tried to push the bundle back toward them. I never wanted this. I did what I had to, for her, my mother. Before I could process the meaning, a sound split the night. A match struck. The scarred man lit a cigarette, then carelessly flicked the match toward a leaking oil barrel near the depot wall. The fire caught instantly, flames curling up like hungry fingers. Time to choose, old man, the scarred man sneered. Stay loyal, or burn with the rest. The flames roared higher, throwing monstrous shadows across their faces. My father stood frozen, the guns at his feet, the fire at his back, and I, hidden in the darkness, realized with icy certainty I had stepped into something far bigger than I could ever control. She sneaks out again and witnesses her father's meeting with a weapons smuggling group. Confirms the bundles contain illegal guns. Hears her father say, "I did what I had to for her." Mystery deepens about her mother. The scarred man threatens him. A fire ignites at the depot. Danger and chaos ends on a huge cliffhanger leading into episode 4.